Hello, everyone. I think we're live. Welcome to another Community Connections. My name is Jeremy Capone. I am your Community Connections Program Coordinator. We have an amazing session today for you, so really excited that you are joining us. First off, happy St. Patrick's Day. That's the first thing. Also, happy Nutrition Month. And then as well, on top of that, it is Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month as well. And we have an exciting guest today for our next presentation from Colorectal Cancer Canada. We have patient support specialist Chana Cohen, and she's going to be interviewing a 23-year-old stage 3 colon cancer survivor, Haydn Bechthold. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And it is a wonderful presentation, so hopefully you take some time to watch it. And then they're going to really address some of the informational gaps that Haydn found from diagnosis through treatment, and what Colorectal Cancer Canada was able to do to ensure, and what is still able to do to ensure, that patients do have timely access to some of this really important information. So it's a wonderful presentation. Really excited that the two of them could join us today. And then shortly after that presentation, at around 12 p.m. Eastern Time, we will be starting our cooking and nutrition demonstration, and we have an exciting class today. We have an amazing two guests. We have two guests joining us, Maria and Suha El-Bizri, and they're going to be teaching us how to prepare some delicious traditional Lebanese recipes. So stay tuned for our cooking class that starts at 12. Okay, without further ado, I will throw it over to Hannah.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talk and Chop, the talk portion of Talk and Chop. We are joined by Haydn, who is a 23-year-old colorectal cancer survivor. Haydn was 22 years old when he was diagnosed a year ago with stage 3 colon cancer in the prime of his life. And it's a very, very interesting story that he's going to share with us a little bit. For a further interest, there were a variety of things that Haydn has told us he was unaware of when he was diagnosed, and through his treatment that he recognizes would have served him, information that would have served him very well during the time. So he and I are going to talk about that a little bit and see, what Colorectal Cancer Canada is doing to address some of these issues. So I've introduced you, Haydn. Maybe just tell the audience a little bit, about the kind of treatment that you were on specifically, and then we'll get started.
All right, perfect. Well, it's great to be talking here. I'm really excited for this. I was diagnosed a year ago. Basically, it was March 2021. I ended up also being diagnosed with Lynch syndrome. Because of that, I actually was able to go on a certain type of immunotherapy treatment, and I did that for multiple rounds, and then I ended up doing a total colectomy and then another surgery that reversed a ileostomy that I had done during my first surgery. So that was kind of my whole treatment plan. Throughout that process, I obviously diagnosed in March. It was huge news. I was like, wow, who would have thought cancer at 22? But then I eventually was actually introduced to Colorectal Cancer Canada, I believe in May, and that really helped me. I didn't know very much about my diagnosis when I was first diagnosed. Obviously, oncologists, surgeons, they're very busy with other patients. There's so many people going through this, so they can't spend a huge amount of time with each patient. So a lot of the things I had to learn were just research on my own, or things friends of the family or other people told me. So when I was introduced to Colorectal Cancer Canada, a lot of my questions were answered, but there were just so many questions I still had, and especially at the start, and I never really got a real answer to. With COVID-19, a big term that's being thrown around a lot is immunocompromised, and what does that mean?
Yeah.
I have a better idea now, but when I was first diagnosed, you're a cancer patient and you're particularly vulnerable. And I kind of just wish I knew what it means to be immunocompromised in the context of a cancer diagnosis and what it means undergoing treatment.
For sure. That's a really good point that you bring up, Haydn, because we've all heard this term immunocompromised, and the COVID-19 virus is particularly dangerous for those who are vulnerable. For you to have been diagnosed during the pandemic, that brings on such an extra layer of fear, and it's really quite shocking, that here you are at this young age, and going through immunotherapy, going through treatments and surgery, and being fighting the disease, obviously trying to stay very clear of the virus. And you've told me that you really didn't know, and then you ended up really isolating yourself, which is a major issue. Patients need to be well supported and well surrounded, and so you weren't seeing your girlfriend, and it was just it's very isolating for somebody, especially your age. So for example, at Colorectal Cancer Canada, one thing that came out of this pandemic for us is an initiative called Ready for the Next Round. So it really has brought together stakeholders that representing patients and caregivers, medical professionals, organization and political representatives, and creating roundtable discussions to explore how to create a more resilient and a more responsive healthcare system, in the face of future crises or pandemics. It focuses really, this initiative focuses really on ensuring that colorectal cancer screening programs, follow-ups, and treatments are not interrupted to the extent that they've been interrupted, because I can tell you, sadly, they've been heavily interrupted. And we're going to, unfortunately see an incredible uptick in later stage diagnoses for people who've had to, who've been delayed or who have stayed away because of fear of infection. So, some other initiatives, some other considerations through this initiative have been identifying unmet needs and positive actions that have been taken, in the medical realm across provinces. One of these things includes, of course, information for patients, what patients need to know, best practice, safety recommendations, specifically for people who are immunocompromised. So really making sure that patients and caregivers are well informed in terms of how to stay safe during this kind of situation. And, ensuring that we have the right avenues to disseminate the information to the patients, because it's one thing for people to have the info, for medical professionals to have this information, a whole other thing to make sure it gets out. So this is something that, that we are tasking ourselves with, is to try and help the medical professionals to disseminate this information to the public. Providing the tools to support that. So that's a really important point that you bring up, Haydn. Can you tell us a little bit more about some things that were, that were question marks to you that you realized would have been helpful?
Yeah, for sure. Actually, firstly, I think that initiative is absolutely amazing. Obviously, nobody really foresaw something like this happening with COVID-19, and that was a huge issue. But I feel like a lot of people just kind of lost sight of there's like other things are continuing to happen. If you're diagnosed with cancer right before or during, it doesn't mean that that's put on hold while COVID-19 is kind of rampant. They're happening at the same time. And I think it's because this obviously could happen again. It's still an ongoing thing. So it's great that CCC is doing this.
Thank you.
Kind of moving with the theme of me not seeing anyone while I was doing my treatment, with the social interaction I actually did have, and that was going to appointments and going for my treatment or my stays in the hospital. I would talk with a lot of other patients. And so that was a lot of my social interaction. And one thing that I did learn, and I also didn't know very much about it at the start, but if you have an NED status on your primary colorectal cancer, so you either have surgery or a full response to the treatment in your colon or rectum, but there has been a spreading to another part of your body, say your lungs, liver, whatever. I found a lot of people didn't know that, or there was a lot of confusion about what type of cancer they now had. They didn't know if they now had liver cancer because there was no evidence of disease in their colon now, or if it was just or if it was colon cancer that had spread to your liver or lungs.
Yeah, important distinction there. So yeah, I mean, that's something certainly that we hear from patients is, that as you mentioned, that confusion about, okay, so I have a no evidence of disease status for my primary cancer, my colon cancer, my rectal cancer, but they have found metastases, the spreading of it to the liver, to the lungs, to the peritoneal area. And so some people do think, okay, so this is a whole separate disease, there's a whole separate primary cancer. It's not a metastasis. So, that's, we have the privilege of connecting with patients, in a very frontline way. We get patients who come right from their, their care team and need clarification on issues like this. So, what we do is we try to support, we try to advocate, for better information. So, the way we do this at Colorectal Cancer Canada is we offer one-on-one counseling. So myself, I'm a patient support specialist. And so myself and some of my colleagues, we offer just sort of, we discuss one-on-one with patients. So what do you understand about your diagnosis, and where are you at with, your treatment? And we try to really kind of tease apart what the status is, what are you really dealing with right now? In the midst of someone's cancer experience, there's just so much information. It's not that the care team doesn't want to tell you or they're being non-transparent. It's just there's such an overwhelming amount of information to process. Patients aren't always in the right position to ask the questions that they need to, especially during the pandemic. We always used to tell patients, like, go to an appointment, have someone with you always, a second set of ears, a second set of eyes. Now that's not something that can happen often, right? So you had to walk in there and you had other patients to talk with, but you didn't necessarily have your mom with you or your girlfriend or someone to really kind of, when you're trying to take in, and manage the emotion of everything, you're not necessarily in the right headspace to ask those questions, So we really try through the one-on-one counseling to, guide some of the misinformation and to enhance the communication between the patient and the care team. Sometimes it's reviewing questions before an appointment. Other times it's role playing, a discussion. So again, we try to provide the space and the support to address these concerns and the missing information and clarify, diagnoses and treatment plans. So very, very good point that you made there.
I mean, moving on to my next kind of question or just thought I had throughout my treatment, I always thought, I mean, first of all, I was lucky to have such an amazing team of doctors and people working to help me. But I always thought, and luckily I didn't have to go through this, but
Yeah.
if I had to seek a second opinion
Oh,
when
yeah.
it came to my treatment, where would I have gone for that? Because I just went through the system. They found I had cancer. I was referred to this person and to this person and to this person. They each had their ideas of what to do, and they kind of just agreed on something, and that was it. It obviously I also had a say in it, but I'm not a doctor. I was just like, yeah, that sounds good to me. Let's save my life. But if it hadn't sounded good to me, I
Yeah.
don't know where I would have gone or what I would have done um, to kind of mend that.
Again, fantastic point. Thankfully you did have a a full response to the immunotherapy, and given the Lynch syndrome, you were eligible for the immunotherapy. But for many patients, first line treatment, meaning the first treatment response to the cancer, does not solve the issue. It doesn't treat the disease adequately, and so sometimes a second, third, even fourth line treatment has to come up. Through that process, I mean, naturally, people will question, well, am I with the right team? Is this the right oncologist for me? I'm not seeing eye to eye. They're not listening to my concerns, maybe. We're not communicating well. So we do hear that. And it's a very natural thing, I mean, you go and think about it. You go and sell a house, you're going to get two realtors to come in, and you're going to figure out, who has the best approach, and whose price do you want to go with, whose listing price. When you're talking about your health, you can't have enough of that, right? You can't have enough reassurance. So we definitely encourage people, if they feel they would like a second opinion, we do encourage it. Since Colorectal Cancer Canada's inception about 25 years ago, we've been very strong in the area of patient and self-advocacy. We're focused on successful treatment outcomes, and we really do feel that every patient needs to have access to the best care possible, which is not just the treatment, it's the quality of life, right? So it's how they're feeling after their treatments. And so sometimes, patients will contact us and ask us to explore a second opinion. And, we do some, individual counseling around that to determine, really, what are your concerns? What are your questions? Is this something that could maybe be solved by, just an open, frank discussion? Maybe there are things that you're not feeling you can say to your oncologist because you don't think it's the right thing to say, or you don't know how to say it. These oncologists, are quite experienced, and we deal with a lot of very, very strong professionals. So it's definitely, their expertise are very much appreciated and very respected. So we do want to make sure that, in fact, you're not leaving a strong team. And so we'll talk about how to communicate with them. Sometimes it's a matter of getting them on the same page, are your treatment goals the same? This doctor is talking, sort of maintenance, and making sure, it's not a curative treatment, but you think it's curative. So, we have to really clarify what the treatment goals are. Other times it is linking them with the right professionals who they can trust and feel confident in, and we can definitely help. We do encourage patients to do this through their oncologist. As our president and CEO Barry calls it, it's quarterbacking. It's getting, the two teams sort of together to really, enhance the exploration of treatments. we also, something to mention is we hold a yearly clinical trials conference to educate the public and educate all stakeholders in clinical trials. We have patient-friendly guide that we offer to help patients navigate their clinical trials. Also important to note that this is all done sort of under the patient pact, which is patient-centered access to clinical trials. And so under this, it's really a way of bringing together, as I mentioned, all the stakeholders involved in clinical trials, because clinical trials are not just a last resort. They can be a first-line treatment if you qualify. So it's really trying to make clinical trials more accessible and more patient-centered, and get patients better informed, and get professionals and patients and caregivers and patient advocates all sort of working together and widening the corridors of service so that access is really, access is quick, and that people are not waiting a long time for these types of interventions. So sorry, that went a little long, but
No,
as you can tell, I'm pretty jazzed about my job and what we do here at CCC.
It's absolutely amazing. The way I thought about, especially when you threw out that quarterbacking term, all I could think of was sports. And the way
Yes.
I see it is almost as if you're like a cancer coach.
Yes.
Like CCC isn't going to, as a coach would, they're not going to go and play whatever sport for you. It's teaching you how to do it. And obviously a coach will help. So in terms of clinical trials or finding a certain medical professional, they'll help you get in contact with that person. But when you go to the appointments, you now have the proper training, and you know what to ask. You basically know what you're doing. You know more about your cancer, which is amazing.
So well put, Haydn. Yeah, exactly. It's providing the tools necessary to be able to know what to ask and how to ask it. Amidst, when you're in crisis, it's hard to know how to formulate these things sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we also talked a little bit, you mentioned earlier about having a temporary ileostomy. So I know that you had, in discussing your story with me a little while back, you mentioned some questions you had at the time during, when you had the ostomy. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I had my initial surgery. That was in August of 2021, and I was given a temporary ileostomy. Before I was discharged from the hospital, I was trained on how to clean the bag, how to change the bag, and that was very helpful. I also had home care coming in to help me do those things. But one thing that I found was kind of limited was information on sort of red flags on if things aren't going well. I was told, I guess, what to look out for in terms of like the appearance of my ostomy. But I think it would have been helpful to know some things that could actually cause problems with your ostomy, such as diet, things like that. I was told after 8 weeks post-surgery, you can usually go back to a fairly normal diet. But I was also told this concept of a low residue diet. So there was a bunch of things going around, and after spending 4 weeks in the hospital, I really wanted to eat food. So after my 8 weeks, I'm like, okay, I'm going to start eating normally again. And when things did start to go wrong, like in terms of a partial blockage, things like that, I didn't actually know when they were happening, or I didn't even know what they were. So I kind of waited until it got more severe, until I finally knew, oh, I should probably go in for this. So I feel like if I was kind of told about red flags, things like that, that could have saved me some trips to the hospital, possibly. So
absolutely. I mean, that's frightening, because your bodily functions are being managed by, this foreign object in your body, not knowing sort of how to react or what's normal, what's not, especially when at the beginning, when you're sort of figuring it all out for yourself. So we do, obviously get a lot of patients who either have been given permanent, others that have been given temporary ostomies. And, even with the temporary ones, the reversal, when they get it removed, that in itself is a process. Your body has to get used to, again, using its own functions.
Yeah, still getting used to that now.
There you go, right? And so when patients come to us, they ask us questions about, sometimes about nutrition, sometimes, about, about social stuff. When I go out, I have to, like, how do I manage this? Body issues. I mean, there's a lot of, there's a lot of questions that come up. What we do is, of course, usually how we approach these things is, we'll speak to the patient one-on-one, find out really what the situation is, and how, and how it's affecting the patient in their daily life, how it's really impacting them, so that we know what type of help to seek for them. Either we redirect them, sometimes we'll redirect them to the right team member. They don't know, who do I go to? I saw an ostomy nurse right after my surgery. As you said, she showed me how to change the bag, or how to clean it, or how to change the flange, or whatever. But then that's it. So either we'll assist the patient, in redirecting the questions to the ostomy nurse, to, whoever on the team can sort of help figure those things out with them. But also, often we'll try to connect the patient directly with, there's several organizations, national organizations and also provincial ones. We have one specifically in Quebec for people who are ostomized, and we have, a Canadian one as well that we're in contact with. So their expertise really comes in handy. They offer a variety of different information sessions and literature and counseling services, and sometimes even support groups, which can be incredibly helpful. The one-on-one, the peer support in this type of thing. People want to know, well, how does this person manage it every day? It's just, it really reduces the feeling of just isolation, and am I the only one dealing with this? So we also, so peer support, is an important part of it. Sometimes we have patients that we connect to talk about this together. And also we've recently, we have educational series and educational sessions that we offer. We had a Living with an Ostomy series recently, where we brought together a patient who has an ostomy, along with an ostomy nurse, and moderated by one of our colleagues. So it was a really nice discussion with a question and answer period after, where there was an opportunity for patients to really hear about what it's like day to day, to really hear about the issues that come up. It really was, the response was really great. So that's unfortunately something that when you had your early ostomy, you didn't have. But we do post these sessions on YouTube, for example, so people can really go back and learn from them at any time. So thank you for bringing up the issue of ostomy, for sure. And, also in our discussion, we talked, you and I talked a little bit about, the emotional impact, of the diagnosis itself, and the emotional impact of dealing with COVID-19 and being isolated and not being able to go out, how this all sort of played on you. And and that's actually how you and I came to meet, right, Haydn? Is I run an early age. We run virtual support groups that are offered nationally, and they're monthly support groups in the evenings, and we do it by Zoom, and we typically have a topic of discussion, and then a presentation, and then we discuss it. So it's a topic of relevance to that specific group. You're part of our early age onset group. Can you tell me a little bit about, about your experience with that? Like how have you found it?
I mean, I love it. When kind of backtracking a little bit, when I first was diagnosed, I found so many of the resources were for older people. So I spoke to a social worker through the hospital I was doing my treatment with, and they kind of they're like, oh, here are 10 links, like, go.
Wow.
And I was on some level lazy, on some level overwhelmed, and I'm just like, I'm not going to go through any of those. Colorectal Cancer Canada was one of those, and it was the kind of advertisement for the patient support group. Luckily, I was introduced eventually through a family friend to CCC, and that's how we met, through the support group. And just having the ability to actually speak to other people my age or like in my age bracket and they're all going through the same thing as me or very similar things as me. It was so helpful, and it was almost a reality check. I wasn't in it alone. Obviously, I have great support from my family and friends, but just knowing other people are going through this and us sharing our experiences, or it's even helpful because a lot of the patients are they have no evidence of disease. They haven't for sometimes years, and they're there almost just to answer questions. And it's so helpful speaking to people either going through it or who have gone through the same thing. I also was lucky to be put in touch with a gentleman my age who had recently just gone through the exact same kind of immunotherapy treatment and had the same type of cancer as me. And it was so helpful. He was great. He just said, text me whenever you have a question, or we can call, whatever. And he would say, this is what happened to me. And it was so helpful because he was my age. And to have that peer support just means a lot, because you can have as much information as possible from like online resources or speaking with your oncologist or surgeon. But it's different talking to someone who's actually gone through cancer.
It really is such a different experience, even when, like you said, you have wonderful family and friend support. I know you and I have joked about the fact that, no one wants to really hear about poop, but, in this group, we can talk about it. People talk about leaky ostomies. People talk about, the reality of being out and, something ruptures and like, what do you do? Or, these are really important things because, we're talking about early age onset, which is, any patient diagnosed under 50. We have people in there, the gentleman you're talking about that you were connected with, he was 19 at diagnosis. I mean, we're talking about people at really, really formative stages of their lives, dating, things like this that are really unique to this age group. And we really have the opportunity to like break it down and kind of discuss these topics together and really support one another. So it's a very valuable, it's really a very valuable space that we have, and I feel very fortunate to be a part of it. Along with that, so I mean, look, cancer is an incredibly, there probably is very little that that's out there that's more difficult to get through, between the emotional and the physical challenges. But one thing that we try to promote at CCC as well is not just, community interaction and peer interaction, but we also try to do it by promoting fitness and healthy lifestyle choices. We have weekly, I wish, a yearly walk run, 5K, 10K walk run called Push for Your Tush that takes place in spring, summer. And this year I'm excited. We're going back to it in certain specific cities. We're going back to it live, Montreal being one of them. Yay! And so this is an opportunity for all of us to kind of, again, push for our tushes and promote health and wellness and meet the community out there, meet the patients that sometimes we only get to meet virtually, and really sort of, it's like an extended family. So it's really nice. I haven't mentioned this yet, but you yourself are an athlete.
Yeah.
Maybe tell us a little bit about how that aligns with your values as an athlete.
Well, I wouldn't say an athlete anymore. I'm still getting back into the swing of things, but
once an athlete, always an athlete, Haydn.
Yeah, it's a mental thing.
Yes.
So I mean, I'm very excited for Push for that reason, to actually have something to work towards in terms of my fitness, and I don't want to embarrass myself in front of everyone. So I need to be able to at least walk the 5 or 10K. I'll try and run it. And I think that's a good goal.
I love it.
But while I was, growing up, I always played soccer. When I was fortunate enough to go and play at the varsity level in the States. I lived in Florida for a year, and then I had the opportunity to continue going to university in England and play semi-professionally. That was kind of always my goal in terms of a career. After I graduated, I did a year in Spain, and I was playing there while I continued with a master's degree. That's also when I was diagnosed. So came back to Canada, got my treatment, and now just getting back to the quote unquote athlete status. But I'm very excited for Push. If anyone's interested, I have created a team. It's called No Guts, No Glory.
Beautiful.
So, yeah, you can join. I'm looking for team members.
Okay, how did they get in touch with you, Haydn, for this?
How do they? If you go on the Push for Your Tush website, you can go on there. There's actually a list of the teams. If you go on standings, and you can just press join a team. You can either create your team, preferably you join mine, but if you want to do your own thing, that's okay. You
should mention that you're in Ottawa.
I am in Ottawa. Yeah, so I'm doing it virtually, as are my family and my friends. But you can also sign it. Is it 5 locations?
I believe so.
Yeah. So that's very exciting. Hopefully, I actually can attend 1 or 2 of the live events. That's what I'm hoping
to get you
for.
Coming into Montreal this summer.
Yeah,
well, actually, I think it's May 29th, I believe, is the Montreal live Push for Your Tush. So that's really great. And it would be great to have you come in for that, Haydn. That could be part of your training for your virtual, for your virtual one. Can never push too much for your tush, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And also I'll just take the opportunity to just mention that, part of course, Push for Your Tush and any initiative that CCC undertakes is really, prevention. And when I say prevention, I mean really risk reduction. We know ourselves, I myself am a stage 3 colon cancer survivor. It wasn't diet, it wasn't genetics. I was told it was the perfect storm. So what does that even mean? How do you prevent something that you don't even know what the cause was? So all we can really do is try to lead a healthy lifestyle, proper diet, exercise, less of a sedentary life, reducing, foods that we know to cause inflammation in the body, which then lead to disease. And so we are relaunching, we have a sister site called Foods That Fight Cancer, which really focuses on prevention and risk reduction, but we are broadening the scope of it, and we're creating sort of an overall health, wellness, lifestyle choice type of thing that incorporates mind, body, and soul, and how to create the balance of these three elements. And that really is, that's the gold standard. That's how to really give it your best shot to reduce the risk of disease. So we'll, look for that, everybody. We'll be relaunching that in the coming months. We're very excited about it. And along with that, we'll be partnering with Elixir Kitchen, who, you'll be seeing very shortly in the next segment, a kitchen demo by them with one of our colleagues, Maria, and her mom, cooking Lebanese ethnic food, which is very exciting. And so, we're going to be partnering with Elixir Kitchen, who is a pan-cancer organization, and they will be helping us to promote, foods and recipes that really speak to our patients in terms of patients who want to prevent recurrence, or patients who are undergoing treatment or who are post-treatment, and really need specific foods that, as you mentioned, are low residue. What does that even mean? Well, Elixir Kitchen is going to help us break that down for the general public so that we can all benefit from this, to create a diet for ourselves that's tasty, nutritious, and also, in keeping with symptom management. So, yeah, all these really exciting initiatives, and I really want to thank you so very much, Haydn, for sharing your story with us. It's like an incredibly inspiring story, and really for helping us to promote the early age onset population, and how we all really need to be aware of our bodies. And, even as you were in tip-top shape, how does this happen to somebody who's in tip-top shape, or literally at the top of their game? None of us is really sort of spared. We're all sort of at risk. So we really all need to, any parting words, not to put you on the spot, but, any sort of parting words of advice or encouragement or whatever?
I guess in terms of advice, it's that this can happen to anyone, regardless of, what type of cancer it is. It's important to know your family history. I found out it was because of genetics that I got this. So yeah, know your family history, and do the things, do things to prevent whatever type of cancers you could be more susceptible to. It's not a fun thing to go through. If it happens, there's so many resources available for you. So it seems scary, but there is a lot of support. But it's better to do the things to try and prevent this from happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, the healthy eating, healthy lifestyle is very important.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's a real pleasure.
Yeah.
I do want to mention one last thing, which was a huge part of your journey, which is self-advocacy, which is something that we really support and encourage at CCC. I know that because of your age, you were, I don't want to say not taken seriously, but your symptoms were explained away for quite some time, I think. Oh, they're hemorrhoids, here's a cream. I mean, you went through that situation for like a few years.
Yeah.
With worsening symptoms. So, self-advocacy, I think, was a huge part of it for you, where you finally just said, no, this isn't working for me.
Yeah, add that to my advice. Advocate for yourself. It's very important, especially if you're younger. Usually younger people are caught at a later stage just because nobody expects someone so young to be diagnosed with colorectal cancer. I never thought this was the thing. I was told, oh, it's probably hemorrhoids. And I was like, you're probably right. That sounds about right.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that colorectal cancer was a possibility for someone my age.
Yeah.
So when I finally found out, it was obviously a huge shock. I knew something was wrong, but I never thought cancer was what was right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you are experiencing any symptoms, it's very important, or even not, it's just the screening and making sure you are taken seriously.
Yeah, speak to your doctor, and if you're not getting anywhere with that, seek a second opinion, right? Make noise until you're taken seriously, or until you're properly evaluaed. So thank you for that very, very important message, Haydn, and thank you for being a part of this. You've really helped to get the word out, and that's really very valuable. So thank you all for tuning in with us, and we hope you enjoy the next segment. Let's cook some yummy food. Thanks so much, Haydn. We'll talk soon.
I'm muted. There you go. Okay, I think I'm back now. So thank you again to Hannah and Haydn for sharing your stories. And that's incredibly informative presentation and interview. You shared some from your experiences and some of the resources that helped you, and some of the new resources that Colorectal Cancer Canada is offering. So thank you again. We will make sure to include those links in the description in the video down below. Again, if I don't know if Hannah is still on watching, but if there is any more information that people could find, or what's the best way that they could connect with Colorectal Cancer Canada, maybe you can include the link in the chat there before we leave. And while Hannah is doing that, I want to thank you all for joining us for the first part of our Community Connections segment. We are going to be starting in about 10 minutes or so at around 12 p.m. for our cooking and nutrition demonstration. And like Hannah mentioned, we will be joined by Maria and her mother for some delicious traditional Lebanese recipes. So we are very, very excited to have them join us. Thank you again. So again, stay tuned until 12 p.m. You can just stay on this link, and we will be back. Thanks, everyone.